as they say. And like you rightly said, I spent the longest years at Wipro. In fact, the journey started somewhere with building the campus program there. And I see some of my colleagues and partners in that journey on this webinar today. So it feels even doubly, I would say, fulfilling.
It's not a webinar.
Yeah, not a webinar on this talk show. And after almost 14 years or 15 years of being in the corporate world, being on that treadmill, being in recruitments, which is a day in and day out activity of just hiring, I realized that there was a certain element or part of me which was not getting fulfilled, and I wanted to address that part of me. Attain really falls into that space, which is something that I'm creating ground up. It takes me back to my roots of campus. Over the years, I've noticed, and I think it's no secret to anyone who's been in our Indian ecosystem, is that there is the industry academia gap. And the courses or the content that students are learning in our educational institutes is not in any way contemporary, not mapped to the real life challenges that professionals face in their organizations. And Attain is another mechanism and a forward-thinking one in trying to address that gap. In the recent years, Samrat, this gap has got further elongated or enlarged by the rapid pace of technology that we have. Sorry to say this, but I think the faculty or the infrastructure in our campuses is not geared up to teach them the cutting-edge disciplines that we have today. Which organizations are following. And that's where Attain will try and fill this gap to ensure that we transfer knowledge, and that's why the 1,000 knowledge bits per second tagline to students, helping them upgrade themselves and in a progressive manner, obviously their organizations and the country as a whole. So that's where Attain stands.
Brilliant, brilliant. So because you've been a TEDx speaker, you've been into multiple podiums, you've been to multiple stages, you had thousands of people looking at you and you are taking them through. And as we can rightly see when we go to your LinkedIn or your Facebook profile, there are so many pictures. So इतना कुछ बड़ा करने के बाद कभी आपने सोचा था इतनी छोटी से शो में आओगे आप?
This is infinitely bigger, Samrat. The kind of things I'm learning on a day-to-day basis. We were having a casual conversation, the other day, and you were talking about how you're creating the creatives yourself. I've actually created a website on my own. It's still in work in process. I call people for feedback once after sessions, just like you did. Call people for this session personally. And it's very important as well, because obviously if I'm building a product, if I don't know the ins and outs of that product, there's no way I can eventually, when I have a team, be able to tell them that or sell them that product or get them to align with the mission. So I believe this is infinitely more critical, more involving, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
Yeah, I'm sure, but my question was a little different because my question was TEDx में जाने के बाद इतने सारे पोडियम में जाने के बाद इंडस्ट्री ट्रेनिंग हो गया है, कॉलेज कैंपस ट्रेनिंग हो गया, रिक्रूटमेंट हो गया, जहाँ पे आप हमेशा सीरियस होते हो, राइट, नॉर्मली, बट इतने लार्ज पोडियम से रहने के बाद कभी आपने सोचा था कि इतने 18 लोगों में एक जूम सेशन में, वो भी इतनी छोटी सी शो में, आप कभी मतलब आपको आने का मौका मिलेगा कभी?
I don't think anything is true to you. To be honest, Samrat, I'm not that kind of a person. I've enjoyed the TEDx experience. It was great, transformational. And I spent days preparing for it. It takes a lot. I prepared for this session as well. Since morning, I've been locked up in a room thinking about what is the kind of googlies you're going to throw at me. So I treat every such opportunity with equal passion and equal, I would say, dedication. That's who I am.
Right. Great. Fantastic. And that's, I think, what your Badaptan is all about. That's your generosity, right? So you mentioned, and I think you've been very fascinated about your hostel life, right? You spend a lot of time in hostel, right? So जब आपने Attain शुरू किया था, I think that's how your bio says that hostel life has kind of motivated you to get into something of this sort. What you started today, it took you more than a decade to start, right? So वो hostel life का क्या influence था आपके जिंदगी के ऊपर कि वो तब से लेके अभी तक वो जिंदा है और आज तक इसके लिए you have started this effort and this initiative?
See, Samrat, I think anyone who's been in hostel will agree that it's one of their highlights of their life, right? And for me, I personally did grow up in hostel. I became smarter. I got to know myself better. Prior to hostel, I was in a very, you could say, urban Mumbai household. Well-educated parents, very supportive and lovely sisters, in some sense protected. And then you get thrown into a hostel where you have to take your dirty clothes on the weekend in a bucket soaked with surf and actually wash them on your own. And that's when you realize that it's a different world out there and you need to grow up. And then of course you have your own hostel stories of the ragging and the late night slink out of the campus hostel, uh, uh, movies on the weekend, stuff like that. So there are obviously fond memories associated with that time. And then what happened was that at Wipro again, when I actually started building the campus program, one again got to go to campuses, interact with students, see some of their masti, because even in a corporate presentation, you'll always have someone or the other playing smart. So that thing keeps you excited and keeps you engaged with the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
So it remembers. I mean, I just remember the movie Chichore. I think that's everyone,
Brilliant.
everyone
Relates to it.
gone through that kind of a phase. So, आपकी जिंदगी का वो छिछोरापंती थोड़ा बताइए हमें, because everyone knows the typical HR Vikas Dua, right? The HR guy who is always serious, and if the HR is calling somebody, सबकी थोड़ी बहुत लगती है कि HR is calling. But HR भी छिछोरा हो सकता है. Today we will get to know from Vikas. So Vikas, please share some of your छिछोरा stories. Don't shy away from it.
To some extent, there might have been, but again, मैं झूठ नहीं बोलूँगा, I was more on the conservative side. So I do remember first year में my college, which was the Hotel Management Institute in Dadar, and the seniors took us out to the Dadar beach, and that's when I had my first beer, for example. And then subsequently you have birthday parties of friends being celebrated in the neighborhood dhaba, or I don't even know what to call them, but there are these bars, or where literally the guy whose beer bottles line up the longest is the star whose birthday was the most successful. So वो सब किया है.
So after the program, did you ever call anybody and abuse to the maximum? Like, आज तो छोड़ूंगा नहीं, आज तो भाई है.
I don't think I ever had that kind of moment. But yeah, there are some memories where, on the last day of college, when you're leaving the hostel, and we've had, people rip out the telephone, someone took away the television set. So from the hostel lobby. So we've had, I would say, vicarious pleasure in being part of the group, if not having done it myself.
You're the one who actually is there on the Bhari side of the group, who will actually go and support, not an active participant in terms of...
No, not me at all.
So hotel management, right? That's what you have studied.
Yeah.
And from hotel management and then HR in my heart, how did that transformation happen? And if you can let us know more about that journey.
Sure. So I started my career in the hospitality industry, Samrat. Got placed on campus and worked for four odd years. Eventually, after a certain point, I did realize that it wasn't really my calling, and didn't see it aligned with me as a person. I'm nothing against the industry. I think fabulous industry. I love traveling and staying at hotels. But what it does require you to do is really put the guest far ahead of yourself. And for example, whether it's New Year's, Diwali, any other big festival, you have to put yourself, your family behind, and make sure that that event is extremely successful and enjoyable for the other folks. And for me, family is always somewhere come first. And part of me was always, even when I was on duty, my heart was at home as to, what are they doing? And I'm missing out on that. So that's where I decided to take a calculated call. Again, my family supported. I took a full-time break, did an MBA. And in India, typically the culture, as you're aware, is that right after your graduation, you go do an MBA and then you get working. In my case, it was slightly different. I worked for 4.5 years and then did my MBA. So during the MBA itself, then that whole, understanding and you say liking for HR came up, and that's where the career path came along as well.
Okay. So, being in HR, what's your take on the situation? I'm sorry, I'm just moving it and digressing it
Sorry. Yeah.
because the situation is as such, and there are a lot of people. And guys, we would come to you. Please feel free to ask your questions there in the chat section. If you really want to speak to Vikas directly, please raise your hand so that I can let you talk to Vikas and ask any kind of a question by unmuting yourself. This is not a two-way conversation. This is a conversation on both the ways, and that's the reason we call it as a talk show. It's not a webinar. It's not a GAN session. And again, just a reminder, another 20 minutes that we have for this session to get dropped off automatically because this is a Zoom free session. And we would request all of you to please join the same link because we would be back in the same link in the same room the moment it gets dropped off. So please don't leave us and go away. So because as I was saying that, with this present situation, right, there are a lot of layoffs happening. There are a lot of salary cuts happening. And on LinkedIn especially, or any other social media platform, if you see, it's a rage, right? People are actually expressing their thoughts. One is a digital era where the robotics, the artificial intelligence, the machine learnings of the world is taking the job away, where you need to constantly upgrading yourself, right? Apart from that, this pandemic has apparently is the icing on the cake. The new normal, everyone is saying new normal, right? बोलना बहुत आसान होता है, I guess. New normal beginning होगी, but I think the recovery time is really, really long. What's your take, being an HR expert? What do you think that? Do you really think that new normal is going to come in our way? Do you think that everything is going to be back as it was before, or do you think this would really take a real long time to come back to the normal state what we were in?
Sure. So, Samrat, honestly, I'm no futurist, but I do have a certain opinion and expectation of how this is going to play out. I have been, and I think many of us would have been working at the time of 2008 with the last so-called recession and the economic, crisis that happened. And I was thick in the middle of a very booming ITS industry, Wipro at that point. And the implication was huge in the entire ecosystem, in the entire country. One saw firsthand, layoffs. One saw firsthand HR teams working on Matrix 6, where every individual was being analyzed in terms of whether they're delivering value, how much is their compensation, where does it stand in the company's P&L, and so on and so forth. And the fact is that this current pandemic is 10 times worse. That's a reality. If I join the dots from there, the other dots that one can easily join is that, again, being an HR practitioner, I get a lot of LinkedIn connects every day, a lot of messages, direct messages, which are unfortunately about individuals who have been laid off or in the process of being laid off. And if I join some of these dots, again, combined with the reading that one does, it's clear that it's a long haul that we need to be prepared for. So the new normal, yes, will involve leaner organizations. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, organizations are strapped for cash. Business is just not moving. Sales are not happening. Where is revenue going to come from? And if revenue is not coming in, where are they going to pay salaries from? So it's an unfortunate cycle that kind of works in that manner. For individuals, I've done a few videos or quick bites, as I call them, and they're on my LinkedIn. You might have seen them. It's an important time for themselves to take stock, to really figure out, how valuable or where they stand in their organization or in their business that they're running. And I would advise serious caution at this point, because organizations in the new normal will be leaner. They will depend more on automation, with more on robotics and all the allied technologies which can help them. And every single individual, whether it's the frontline delivery person or the CEO, is going to be questioned for bringing the right skills and value to the table. So that's something that everyone should honestly absorb and think about very carefully. The the government and the authorities are really looking at it as the lives versus livelihood debate as we speak. Individuals need to look at the lifestyle angle. What are my expenses for the next 6 months, 12 months? What are my discretionary expenses? Can I put something off? Do I really need to do this right now? Is there a skill I need to invest on right now, some course or program which can help me 6 to 12 months down? So those are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves.
No, I think, yeah, because I think you're absolutely right and you're spot on. I mean, there is no second way about it. You need to upskill yourself. You need to really learn new things. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for survival in the next few years down the line. But नौकरी नहीं है, right? अगर है भी तो you apply and no one responds. I think in today's world, apart from very few individuals like you, me, and rest of the other folks in this particular discussion, a lot of them are probably not very active on LinkedIn. Or even if they are active, they are there just for the heck of being there. It's a social network on professional front, and they don't help each other. I'm sure there will be more people out here who might have gone through this kind of a phase in their career, or probably I might have gone through such kind of a phase in my career where I reached out to certain people and they just read your message and they don't even bother to respond. तो ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म में रहने का क्या फायदा है जहाँ पे एक दूसरे के साथ लोग नहीं रह सकते हैं? आपको क्या लगता है? Is this something just for the heck of that people should get rid of it, or मतलब क्या है? What is your take?
See, every platform has its own pros and cons, Samrat. In the case of LinkedIn, since you mentioned that specifically, my own observation is in the last 2 months, there has been suddenly a floodgate opening of a lot of people contributing and joining into the party, like they say. Again, driven by the hope that or the understanding that this is where further gates will open and more opportunities will spring up. Unfortunately, it's not always the case, and one has to realize that just like your own career or your other relationships in the offline world, even these online relationships take time to kind of build up. You need to invest time, energy, and be very transparent upfront before you can reach a point where you say that, oh, this platform has actually delivered value to me, or I'm getting what I wanted out of it. At the end of the day, we have to realize we are 1.3 billion people, and the opportunities will only be that many. So this is in fact giving rise to another very interesting aspect in today's world. And if you give me permission, I'll continue for a couple of more minutes on this.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the meantime, we have Niaz, who is a part of one of our participants. He's asking, do you really think artificial intelligence would be able to take over a recruiter job? So that's one question you might want to answer.
Sure. So continuing where I was, this is the time really where they say the passion economy is going to come up, where people will really start finally rethinking what they've been doing for the last 10-15 years, and rather than continue running down that same path, competing in that rat race, want to connect back to their inner selves, similarly to maybe what you are doing and what I am doing, of taking their passion forward in a new, maybe smaller way, but infinitely more fulfilling. So that would be another tip or guidance that I would give to folks, rather than maybe just go online and go ballistic on LinkedIn and start spraying and praying that something will work out. They really need to work in a focused and more niche manner now. So which organization do they want to join, or which industry they do want to transition into, what kind of role they want to do, who could be the right people who could get them that entry point, what is the qualification they may need to strengthen their chances. That's the right way to approach this current situation.
So the second question that Niaz was asking, the artificial intelligence, do you think that will take away jobs for recruiters also?
The low end work that recruiters typically do. And anyone who's involved in recruitment, Niyaz, and the others who are on the call, would be aware that a lot of time of recruiters goes in actually just screening CVs or waiting for candidates, taking them from one room to the other room, telling them the hiring manager is going to come, then sitting with the hiring manager, getting the feedback, putting it into a system somewhere manually. Uh, this is where automation completely will clear out all these stack of activities. AI will also improve or remove some of the recruiters' low-end activities of actually first filtering through the CV, for example, because your AI tool will be able to filter out the right candidates from a stack of 2,000 online CVs in the time that maybe a recruiter can do 20. So there is definitely an impact, but the fact is that the recruiter will obviously need to upgrade himself or herself to do a better job at connecting to the candidate, showcasing the organization, building that connect with the organization, and kind of uh, becoming the so-called recruitment business partner in a sense. That's the role that he or she should try to fit into.
And I would also like to add in out here, Vikas, because I'm a certified RPA professional myself.
Oh,
I'm a
lovely. Yeah.
RPA professional on Automation Anywhere and from UiPath, both actually. And yes, to answer your question, I would like to suggest and let you know that to an extent, artificial intelligence or robotic process automation would impact every aspect. It is not predominantly into the recruiting aspect. It would be in comp and ben, it could be in sourcing, it could be in procurement, it could be in admin, it could be in operations, HR, every aspect. So if you want to stay attuned and you want to really, really hold on to your job, and you do not want to get a surprise tomorrow when your company gets a set of bots implemented through an amalgamation of artificial intelligence and robotics, don't be surprised if you are getting a letter or a notice from your employer stating that your services is no longer required. So yes, if you see a lot of AI infusion that has happened, because there are a lot of companies, AI, they have come up actually right now where they are actually making the recruitment process absolutely automated, where the psychometric tests for a candidate is also happening through an AI test. So
Exactly.
the world is moving to a different direction altogether, and if we really have to sustain, we need to develop ourselves and stay upgraded. We have a couple of questions coming up. Priyanka Thakral, she is asking, because what skills you would like to suggest to an aspiring HR professional to develop?
Sure. So for an aspiring HR professional in today's context, apart from obviously the other soft skills and the people skills that one should have, you will definitely need to have very high level of HR analytics skills and technical skills. Keeping the in line with the conversation that we've been having the last couple of minutes, the fact is that technology has really made a quantum leap in the last 1.5 years, especially if you look at TA as a space and HR as a space. Till about 10 years ago, literally what we saw in our companies was that, the sales guys had Salesforce and they had all this high-tech, software which enabled them to look at the deal pipeline and the conversion and all of that. You also had the finance team, which had all their software and platforms which enabled them to look at how the company's financials are and cash flow and manage all that very well. HR managed to get the HRIMS systems also reasonably about 5 to 6, 10 years ago. But these were clunky and they were slightly, challenging to work with, and they required a lot of coding and, configuration by the ERP providers at that point. In the last 2 years, and if you go online and just do a simple Google search, just like Samrat was sharing, I myself would be able, as a tenured professional, find it extremely challenging to select one tool from amongst the 50 that we have. And these are just 50 which will show up on the first few pages of a Google search. So what that tells you is that there's immense, innovation that has happened in this space. As an HR practitioner who's getting ready for this, who wants to future-proof yourself, you will need to know the intricacies of this technology. maybe not do the coding, but really know how it works, how it can help you in better delivery of your job, which part of it to pick up, which part to keep away for now, maybe implement 6 months later, so that technology bent of mind, just like you see today luckily with a lot of millennials that we see around us, you hand them over a new gizmo and in 10 minutes it's set and they are off. You don't need to coach them, or they don't need to open a clunky manual like we used to do while setting up a device 10-15 years ago. So that's the kind of skill set that you really need to beef yourself up with, the analytical skills and the technology skills.
Right. There are a lot of questions coming up. I'm really, really liking it, guys. Thank you so very much being so participative that, I hope you guys are enjoying. And good news that we don't have to drop off. Zoom was kind enough to give us a gift that we have removed your 40 minutes limit. So we can continue the conversation and we don't have to drop off and rejoin back. So Yogesh was asking this question to you, Vikas, that how is talent acquisition going to be in the next couple of years? That's question number one. Question number two, Priyanka, there's a different Priyanka who is asking that while AI will minimize the manual effort put into sourcing or screening, will it be able to replace the human connect that in most cases it makes or breaks the deal? That's a very good question, right? I would love to answer that question for Priyanka, and definitely you would also answer.
Yes.
Satya is asking that Satya Prakash Mahapatra is asking that when an individual is planning to switch from one industry to the other, don't you think recruiters are hesitant to consider the same application from other industries, although these candidates possess required skill sets? What actually restricts them, whether their personal intuition or organizational policy? That's a very good question, Satya. Yeah, I'm sure I would love you to answer this question first.
Okay. So Satya, I think that's a question.
Do not agree to hire somebody from a different industry despite of having the skill set, or is it just an organization policy, which is a very cliche statement that HR gives?
It's a tricky question, Satya. I think you're going to get me into trouble with a lot of the HR folks and people that I worked with. The fact is, unfortunately, and I don't want to hold back here, Samrat. It's a GLIBTALK. Okay, so I hope you're not going to put this recording up somewhere and this remains between this group. Unfortunately, what happens is recruiters are also human, right? And they have a lot of pressure. They're carrying multiple positions they're hiring at any point. Each one of them is for another business leader in their organization, and who's given them a download in terms of what kind of person he or she wants, and given them a nicely worded JD which lists all the aspirational wants. So when a recruiter gets a statement like this, job description and a statement like this, the immediate step that he or she takes is to run to find someone who tick marks or check most of the check boxes on that. And in a sense, it's the easiest and fastest way to closing that position. It is more challenging, obviously, to find someone who doesn't tick all the check boxes, but is equally good or a better candidate. But then what it needs is that it needs a recruiter to have that wherewithal to go up to the hiring manager, to sell that candidate, to push through. And in my honest experience, I think 90% of us, and I hold myself accountable as well, it's not that I am Doodh ka dhula hua, we may have found it easier to kind of just go with the standard template, push through the standard person, and close one more position against our name and reduce our open position target. So that's unfortunately how it has been. But that's really the beauty where AI technology that we've been discussing will actually take off some of this burden that from the recruiter's end. And really, if the software can get him 5 or 6 very good candidates, irrespective of the industry background, I think it will at the end benefit both the candidates as well as the organization. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. Nidhi is asking, a lot of campus placements for MBA graduates have been deferred or on hold currently, which is true. In these times, how can these graduates upskill or utilize the time to be future ready? That's a good question.
Right. Yeah, sure. So, Nidhi, this is a very unfortunate development, I know, and a lot of interns have reached out again on LinkedIn. It's really sad. In fact, even I find it difficult to believe that something like internship should be deferred. Uh, but having said that, I know that some institutes and the more progressive ones have actually already, tried to give them some virtual internships or given them guidance in terms of some online courses or qualifications that they should acquire during this period. See, let us look at it from another angle. When the campuses or these students get ready for their final placements next year, which is come Jan, Feb, March, and companies are at campus either remotely or in person, they are obviously going to look at their CV and question as to where was the so-called internship. Uh, if someone doesn't have an internship, it's not going to be a problem. I assure the students who may be listening in. I'm sure companies will be mature enough to understand that COVID had a huge impact, but it will bode well for the candidate if he or she could showcase that they've used that time constructively. And when I say constructively, it could be an academic program that they've done online, good quality program. It could be some social service they've done. It could be some virtual internship they've done. Uh, the only catch I see here currently is that another trend which is emerging, that everyone seems to be rushing into collecting certifications. And I think that will not serve anyone very well. Ideally, a student in that position should really use this time to think through very carefully as to which is the line of work or kind of work they want to do post their program. Find a suitable qualification which is aligned to that, and pick up one, but pick up one very solid qualification, and along with the qualification, pick up that skill, because the world is also moving towards skill capability check rather than a certification check model. So that's where I would guide these students.
I think because a lot of people are actually busy posting their certificates online to showcase that, you know what, many,
Correct.
but actually if you ask them questions, they are technically not able to answer. So as because
Correct.
it's a very good answer that you've given, that just for the heck of getting that certificate, don't do the certification. Yes, during this pandemic, there are a lot of organizations are offering free online courses. Get into the depth and actually learn it, right?
Yeah.
Poonam
I
is
mean, one could even, for that matter, coming back and relating that passion economy angle. If someone is an artist, make a few paintings, put them up on one of the portals that we have where you can retail them. See if some of them sell out, and that could be something you could really showcase next year in your campus placements.
yeah, and that will only
The world is your opportunities are endless today.
correct, and that will get you the brownie for where you would be placed.
Yeah, exactly.
Noni has posted very, very nice. I think our Glip Talk is getting a little serious. We are supposed to have a pep talk. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think very informative. Noni is saying, because it's Sunday, on a lighter note, if Vikas had to choose another totally different profession other than what he has experienced, hospitality or human resources, coupled with training and mentoring, which one would he choose and why? That's a good question. I like that question, Noni. Thank you. Yes, Vikas. Which
Any alternate
coming
profession?
for you also on Glip Talk per se. So don't you worry. Hold on to it. Brace yourself.
Interesting question, Noni. I never really thought about it, but uh, maybe I would love to become a dancer. Yeah.
I think we have Neha also with us on the call, but
Oh,
yeah. So it is a Glip Talk with Vikas. So we would ask all these questions to Vikas only. I'm sure Neha would be the best person to answer this. By the way, if you don't know Neha, Neha is Vikas's beloved wife. She's also a professional, and someday we will get Neha also in our Glip Talk, probably. So Neha, thank you for being a part of the session. I have a question for you, Vikas. What was your
sure.
drop off the mic moment?
What was your?
Drop off the mic moment. मतलब आप टेडेक्स में हो या फिर कहीं पे बात कर रहे हो और आपको खुद ही लगा कि यार मैंने क्या भाषण दिया है, क्या बोला है मैंने, and I should deserve a pat on the back myself, and you went out of the stage and you said, "Good job, Vikas."
I think it was TEDx without doubt, because just the scale of that and the entire emotion which I've been carrying on for over 2-3 months of that platform, having successfully delivered it.
So TEDx is the answer. That's where you really
TEDx
think that you have given the best for delivery of speech.
Correct. Yeah. There was another one which was again something I recently posted where this was a conference in Bangalore earlier this year on panel discussion where we discussed the campus and the future of campus recruitment. And that got some very good response from the audience. It was a unplanned moment or comment which just kind of I made, which struck a chord with many of the recruitment professionals in the crowd. So that was a another fulfilling moment.
Okay, I think somebody has unmuted themselves. Guys, please be on mute. Okay, what is a bad decision ever that you have ever taken so far in your life and you really regret it till date?
Opting for a job for purely monetary reasons. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You never wanted to work?
I've been guilty of some crimes, yeah.
That's a very interesting answer. You said opting for a job. I mean, that's what everyone craves for, right? I think everyone is enough if they have a job today. Oh wow, really? Did you really consider that as a bad decision of opting for a job?
Opting for a job in the sense, a job change or organization change.
Okay, organization change, not opting for a job.
Yeah.
So I was like a little confused. What was your most embarrassing moment on a stage or on a podium ever that you really got embarrassed by an audience asking you a question, or you really did not have an answer and you just like zapped? Did you ever come across any of such situations?
Honestly, I don't think so. Not yet, at least. Hopefully, won't.
Okay, you being either modest or you being little diplomatic.
I'm normally on platforms which are related to my work in that sense, and somewhere maybe there is an understanding of that ecosystem, so I managed to navigate out of it.
Okay.
But I haven't been totally dumbstruck, to be honest.
Okay, but you always had an answer. That's
I've always
that's always in HR, right? HR is always their answers.
Blame it on someone else.
So the next question is, who has lost your respect? If you ever lost respect, who has lost your respect for life? You don't have to name that individual, but do you have anyone in your life that he or she has lost respect forever?
I lose respect for people who kind of just pick up the phone and connect when they need something. And there are many of them in our life.
What are you doing and what's up? Are you okay? And everything well-being.
Yeah.
That's a very nice answer. HR always has an answer, right? For everything. Now it's the side of HR right now. When was the last time you actually been shut up by your wife? Everybody, right? And I think that happens for most of the married men. But I'm just saying, knowing HR being shut up by his wife at home, when was the last time and what was the context?
See, Samrat, there's one thing I live by is that, you can mess around with the boss in the office, but don't mess around with the boss at home. And there are enough of my own people on the phone, on the talk show today who will vouch for that. So, yeah, shut up. I think I was shut up last evening. I think we were watching a streaming show or something.
And she just told you to shut up and watch. Well, that's really nice. So guys, I think it's more or less it echoes with everybody. If you ever were a ghost, whom would you haunt and for how long and to what extent?
Ghost and...
We all have some sort of revengeful nature in our mind, right? But we can't do anything upfront to somebody. So you are ghost, you are invisible, you have certain supernatural power in yourself.
Oh, so from that perspective, you can mess around.
Yeah.
One of my previous bosses.
I think that answers echoes with everybody, right? Okay. I think that's the apt answer of the evening, one of my previous bosses. And I'm definitely not going to ask you the name of the boss. That's a very, very smart answer. What are the two things you would never spend money on?
Drugs.
Okay, that's one.
One is very clear upfront, and I think a pedicure. Yeah,
Well, you aspire
I
to
can't.
answer. You aspire
Huh?
to answer, right? And
Yeah, but I'm old school, right? And honestly, when I go for of course, pre-COVID, when one would go to these salons and you see, uh, men, of course, women, and they're having their facials and the pedicures and the manicures, and from a middle class guy who grew up and you had budgets and you lived with those, and you stayed in a hostel and you had a monthly budget to live by, and irrespective of how much one ends up earning, I don't think I could ever go and get someone else to, do a pedicure for me or do one of those fancy things. I mean, it's just not me.
okay. So we have people asking questions. We have Jasmita asking questions that what keeps you motivated? You may have downtimes. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
And we're gonna ask you a few questions about your failures very soon. But that's a good question, Jasmita. That what keeps you motivated? You may have downtimes. How do you lift yourself up?
So what really works for me, I think, is exercise. If I do it, on a sustained basis for a number of days, weeks, and currently it's in fact a daily religious practice almost, thanks to the lockdown. It just keeps my energy levels up and keeps me going. I don't then generally go into a dip or a negative space at all. I mean, it's really a great pick me up.
So keep exercising. Keep yourself
Yeah.
fit.
So every day, I mean, a little bit, I think just keeps the rhythm going for the rest of 24 hours.
Right. Rohit is asking a quick question. How do you think the recruiters and the recruitment process will evolve from here on? What should be the preparedness levels for interviews? Do you anticipate the interview process changing in the coming days?
So this is a very broad question and good question. So if I relate it to some of the things that we've been discussing so far, Rohit, you said, right?
Rohit is asking this question.
Yeah. So Rohit, talent acquisition will, ideally move in two tracks. One will be the so-called sourcing or the employer branding or the talent attraction track, where you will really need to make your company more or your brand more accessible, more appealing to the applicants, and pull them towards you. The second will be the operational modalities of the entire recruitment process, which is really the assessments and the selections and the offer letter going out and the joining and all of that. And Samrat didn't hint about it earlier, where AI will play a larger role there, where there are technologies even available today in the market where, just by this video analysis can actually rate to very high level of certainty what is, for example, my quality of my, not only my spoken skills, but my confidence level, my, my tension in my body, things like that. So pretty much the marking or the assessment side would get taken care of by some of these platforms and speed up that entire selection cycle. And the talent acquisition team therefore will end up being the so-called recruitment or brand custodians, where they actually tap candidates and help them seamlessly move into this automated cycle and come into the organization.
Ravleen is asking that I want to take HR as my major, and I have heard many people saying that HR has no future. That's a big statement. I don't believe that. But yes, or the jobs related to HR will be very less so. You can please tell what is the scope of HR in future and what are the major changes that are going to happen?
Sure. So, in fact, I think I would obviously, just like you, Samrat, come somewhere differ with this view. In fact, there's a very good report by Gartner, which is available online, and I would recommend Ravleen to kind of Google around and see if she can get it. The roles in HR are going to change. It's not that HR is going to disappear. So we're going to see very clear new roles, which are in the areas of change management, in the areas of integrated talent management. Today, what's happening is that, in companies, your recruitment leader or your hiring team is sitting in a silo. Your HR business partners are sitting in a silo. Your compensation and benefit people are sitting in another corner of the office. And there is no structured story which is binding all of these people together. And to that extent, another thing that we touched upon earlier, the analytical angle of someone in HR being able to understand analytics in terms of what is the the mood in the organization basis data points of the employees. And these are not data points where employees gone into a system and clicked, yes, I'm feeling good today. This is more like tracking their moods through some analysis like this through the screen where they're working, through some of their Facebook or LinkedIn posts, to get an understanding of which employees are engaged, what are the levels of engagement, how long they're likely to stay with the organization. So it's going to be an exciting but a very different HR going forward.
Right. Yogesh is asking, how is talent acquisition function is going to evolve in coming years?
So touched upon this a little earlier. I think Rohit's question was very similar. I don't know if you want another perspective to this.
A quick
but
question.
Yes,
I think VIKAS.
Yeah. So talent acquisition will become a little leaner. Talent acquisition professionals will need to be able to really get more social media savvy, more aligned to new age technologies in terms of being able to digitally source candidates and tap them. Even for that matter, the ecosystem of the executive search firms that we have will have to upgrade themselves. It's not going to be pure play, just get people by the busloads and throw them in. That has been typically happening. The online video interviewing will be deployed in a much bigger way. That's another big direction. So companies are not going to be happy getting 50 people and sitting in their waiting areas, because we obviously know the social distancing and all those challenges that are now there. So it's going to be more about finding a candidate, sitting at home, interviewing him there and there itself remotely, if selected, offered, and if the work allows, allow him or her to work from home on an ongoing basis.
Right. And Ravleen, to answer your question, if HR is your passion, go ahead and pick it up. That's it, right? It's very simple. Don't get swayed, don't get deviated by anybody saying anything. Everybody has a different perspective. Everybody has their own set of ideologies. Everybody has their own set of things. But if HR is your passion, go ahead and pick up HR. And me being an operations guy, I'm saying this because I've never been to HR, and HR and operations are always Saap and Neula. I've been to operations for ages right now, and HR is the strongest pillar जिसके साथ बना के रखना पड़ता है, technically, right? So HR is the one, and we have, I think, a lot of HR folks out here in this particular call, where we have Srinivas Reddy, who is one of, I think, one of the key HR personnel there in the HR fraternity as well, like you, Vikas. Thank you for joining, Srinivas, and thank you, everyone. Now, we will have to quickly wrap it up for the best of the interest of everybody's time. And we should not take undue advantage of Zoom giving us its entire one hour absolutely free. We want to know your biggest failure in life and what have you learned?
Sure. So,
and do you keep failing?
I keep failing. I think so. It's difficult to find a biggest failure. I think there's so many failures one can talk about, Samrat. I think the best part, I think about myself, and I would urge everyone to think of it that way, is that, and that's also maybe in hindsight. Now I'm at an age where I can look at it philosophically and say that a fail is nothing more than a focused attempt in learning. That's something that I really believe in. But starting my first job, when I say first job, my first big job, when the company was Wipro, I was hired for a specific project, which was to provide an education initiative to students within the organization. And in the first week itself, I found myself in the CEO's room, and he shares with me, and this was TK Kurian that time, who later went on to become CEO of Wipro Technology. And I'm sitting with my boss there. I'm introduced as the guy who's going to run this program. And TK shares with me his vision of how the program is going to transform the industry and is going to be a benchmark for every other BPO player to copy. And 1 month down, after we launched the program, unfortunately it flopped. And you can imagine my state. And honestly, I think at that point, Maybe it was youth, maybe it was exuberance, but I didn't let it bog me down. The organization again was very supportive. The campus program, which I keep talking about so passionately, was actually offered to me at that point as saying that, would you like to do this instead, or this along with what you were doing? And I said, I grabbed it with both hands. And today I'm building another new chapter on that starting point. So that same failure became a start of a success story that time, and I'm hoping again, once again.
So Attain is the initiative. For your information, if you go to Vikas Dua's LinkedIn profile, you'll get to see that he's the chief HR mentor of Attain. The name is very, very different. I really, really like that. I thought it's Attain or some Indian regional name, but Attain is Attain, but I think Vikas's vision and the thought process has replaced that I with a Y, right? So that's very interesting. So you might all want to connect with Vikas for greater piece of learning that he actually carries. What's your biggest success so far? I know you're to see a lot of success, and we wish you all the very best to see a lot of success coming in your way. But so far, if you really have to take a reference of one of your major success story in a quick nutshell, if you just can share with all of us.
Samrat, honestly, I think, these are all relative. If I talk about my success, I think it's nothing but the relationships I've built over the years. And, I can see some of them on this chat taking out 1 hour on a Sunday to listen to me. There's Srinivas, there's Rakesh Almal, there's Noni, there's Nidhi. I see so many of them, Atul Balen, some of Nayaz. Unfortunately, I think some of them have full first names, so I don't know. But maybe I am not taking on names. But I think ultimately, once you work for so long, I think ultimately it's the relationships that you make are your biggest success story. And I can't thank these people enough.
Well, that deserves a clap. I mean,
honestly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's honesty what speaks. But I think that's a very nice way you have answered that question. And we wish you all the very success. And I'm taking the last question for this evening. Rohit is asking one last question. He's saying, what will be the role of HR and employee engagement in the virtual world? How are the dynamics going to change in the future? Do you foresee need of implementation plan organizationally? Failures makes you popular to do the right action next time. So that's what Rohit's version is. So the primary question is, how are the dynamics going to change in the future in HR employee engagement in the virtual world?
Correct. So again, this is a very emerging field, right? Till about 2 months ago, we used platforms like Teams and Zoom for connecting with teams across different locations, geos. But today we are in a situation where we are, you're literally forced to use the platform within your own city as well, even if you were sitting with a guy next door, but today you can't, next workstation. So it's been quick pace of adoption by most companies, and unfortunately HR has also managed to do the same. The big challenge is now going forward. What we already see right now, Rohit, is that there is a lot of screen fatigue that people are struggling with, and irrespective of which platforms I've been on, I can honestly share that of late the numbers have been dipping, whether that's work related or that's personal. When this whole pandemic started, I know a lot of friends used to get together on the weekend, have an offline your Zoom Connect, but even that seems to be falling now because everyone is just so up to the necks with these webinars. So employee engagement will have to really transform. HR folks will need to find a very fine balance. It can't be that if it was every Friday fun, walk down the corridor and just get everyone together and do some mini activity. The easiest and simplest way that a lot of HR folks will do is then move that Friday into an online thing and do every Friday 3 p.m. we will all come on a Zoom. Everyone will get their own coffee mugs and we'll clap and all that. But it's not going to be as simple as that. So there will be new models which will emerge, new thought processes. It will require a little bit of personalization in my view. So a call to a Samrat every Thursday, if that's his preferred mode of connecting, a Zoom call for a VIKAS every Wednesday if that's what he prefers. So HR folks will need to do a little bit of working on the ground level to really figure out what is it that their people want, and then try and give them that.
And that's what pragmatic innovation is all about. And that's where people need to start thinking on a different line, because conventional way of doing things, they have to come to an end. I think this pandemic has taught us a lot of lessons. It has actually broadened the horizons. It has changed the entire gamut, the way we were thinking previously. So unprecedented, which happened 100 years ago. I think that rejuvenation of 100 years later, what happened right now is going to stay for a very long time. So I think this, for everybody, with a little bit of my knowledge and my experience, I would like to say that keep upgrading yourself, keep upskilling yourself. This is the time where a lot of people, a lot of organizations are offering free stuff online. That's a great platform to upskill yourself, to learn things yourself. And just don't do it for the heck of getting a certification. Learn it deep, do the deep learning. I think that's what actually will help us to stay sustained in the industry. So I think we have already shot up 7 minutes. Thank you so very much. Everyone, is my sincere request. First of all, I would like to thank you for your patience, for your time that you've given us for this smaller GLIBTALK for good 1 hour. We would be coming up with new GLIBTALKs with a lot of new people, different variety, different genre, not only HR. The previous one was a sales guy. The previous one was a consultant. This time we are planning to get a stand-up comedian, or probably a woman who has actually made some marks. So we are yet to decide on that. So thank you so very much. Please like us on Facebook. Please like us on Instagram. It's on your email, just one click away. Because before we say goodbye to each other, if you just can say a parting note to all of us, to GLIBTALK, and anything that comes to your mind before.
Of course. Sure. Thanks so much, Samrat. I think pleasure being on the platform with you at this point. I hope and wish you all the greatest success as you go forward. Sincere thanks to the attendees for sparing the time. It feels nice that some of you took out the time to spend and connect with me. And the only parting note I'll share in very simple, keep the 3 R's in mind for the coming period. One is recalibration. Take stock of what you want to do as you move forward. The second is relationships. Use this time to strengthen some of your existing relationships or build new ones. And third, reskill yourself. If you think there's something you can add to yourself, go ahead and do it. This is the best time. So with that simple note, goodbye and thank you, everyone. Pleasure being here, Samrat.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Take care. Stay home. Stay safe. And we shall see you next time. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.